are all relevant, that are all linked, that have kind of influenced their work anyway, and that's going to be beneficial to you when you're doing your research. Yeah, even if it's just for the bibliography list, which is going to influence your work or give you more insight into it, it's really useful to look into. Your third year, so that's exactly what we're expecting. Right, so obviously we're not going to read the whole article now, that's for you to do in your own time, but I'll just give you an overview of the article and the views of whether it's ethical or not, okay? So the main point is that there's just no pay involved with crowdsourcing, generally, okay? So there's just no pay. So is that ethical, is that unethical? That's what they're trying to say. They're also saying it may be ethical for not-for-profits or charities to crowdsource, crowdfund, but it's not ethical for profit companies. So if you can cast your mind back to last week, I believe, and even the week before in some of the seminars, I've kind of mentioned about crowdfunding. And we said it makes total sense for startup businesses, the newer businesses, to go ahead and run crowdfunding campaigns. And we're fine, we'll back them up, you know, we'll happily do that. But when we see our big league companies, our international, multinational companies trying to crowdfund, the line is a little bit blurry, the boundaries might be a bit questionable. Why? Why are we more willing to give smaller startup companies but not those larger ones? And then you obviously established, they're already established, they're already large companies, they already have years and years and years worth of revenue, sales, profits, they have a track record. So if they did need the extra finances, they can easily go to the bank and get a loan, right? Or retain their own profits. So technically for them to crowdfund, it would be seen as unethical. But you can argue it whichever way. So that's what that point is basically saying. It's okay for not-for-profits to do that because it's for a good cause. They're not making money from it. They're helping people. So why wouldn't we want to get involved? Why would we not want to share our ideas for nothing in return? Whereas if it's a profit-based, they're making money from it. So why should we give our ideas for free? Why should we give our input for free? So that's another thing, ethical versus unethical. And the last one, you're going to hear this word quite a lot, exploitation. So with exploitation, it's a question of, are we exploiting the people who are helping or contributing? Are we taking advantage of them in some way, shape, or form by not giving them anything in return? So this is just one author's viewpoint, and this is specifically, as I mentioned, the social media translation example. And you can get a lot of information from that. So when we move on, there's another guy who's pretty much got the same kind of understanding and same kind of questions that are being asked. And we're going to basically look at his points. So it's a quick little video. I would like you to make some notes on it because you can always bring this question into your essay, this ethical thing. So if you guys notice the wording, I will explain all of this in detail next week, but the wording of the essay question is quite like a blanket approach. It's quite vague, so you can really use it to your advantage and take it in any direction that you want. I will give you some tips next week to be able to stay on track and make sure you're not going off on a total different tangent, but you can really make it your own and make the most of it and include whatever you want as long as it's relevant. But I'll go through all of that next week. So this is the link. I would like you to make some notes and see how you can link it to your assignment.
When I started my
Okay.
In getting results from crowds, we give detailed advice on how to use crowdsourcing to get business results. However, for many, their first thought in considering crowdsourcing are the ethical issues. We give a framework for thinking about the ethics of crowdsourcing in Chapter 5 of Getting Results from Crowds. Here is a quick review of the 4 points that people commonly make about the ethics of crowdsourcing. I will run through the contrasting viewpoints on each of these. People should be paid for their contributions. Many forms of crowdsourcing, they just draw on unpaid contributions. People are contributing to companies making money, and they should share in those profits. Examples include Huffington Post, which made hundreds of millions selling to AOL, partly based on unpaid contributors. And Dig, which is entirely dependent on the efforts of its users. They should be paid for their contributions. Unpaid work is always voluntary. People do these tasks because they get some kind of value from them. For example, building their profile, learning, or just spending time in an interesting way. Contributors make their own informed choice about what they spend their time on. It is exploitation to pay people very low amounts. Looking for the lowest cost worker in the world is exploitation. These people don't have any negotiating power. The developed world rich are paying them ridiculously low pay. This is unfair. The world of connected work creates massive new opportunities for people in the developing world. Even though pay may be low by developed world standards, it's usually far more than they could earn locally. Workers usually work in conditions far better than, for example, in a local factory. Businesses should support their countries and communities by employing locally. Businesses have an obligation to their employees and their community to employ locally. It's unethical simply to go to the lowest cost provider in the world without regard for those around you. Most companies hope and expect their local communities will support them, and they should also support their local community, even if it means paying more. Companies that consistently offshore jobs and work will destroy the local community and in turn destroy themselves. Almost all companies are experiencing global competition. If they don't use the best talent at the lowest cost, they won't be competitive and they risk going out of business, losing all of the jobs. If they're successful, they will hire as many, if not more, local people. The reality is that lots of roles can't be outsourced. And don't forget that our community is global. Crowdsourcing provides a great opportunity for talented people in developing countries to create prosperity for themselves, their families, and their local communities. Professionals should not do unpaid work. In the no-spec movement, they say that all creative work should be paid. Design competitions ask for work will only be paid for if the client likes it. This is fundamentally unethical. Creative professionals should commit to never participate in spec work. It is undermining the entire industry and the livelihoods of many. There are many reasons why professionals choose to participate in competitions. Sometimes they can make a living from it. In other cases, it's an opportunity to develop their skills and create work that they can later sell to other clients. The reality is that the best designers almost never compete in competition, so clients who want the absolute best must work with them directly. But the competition platforms are working because there are sufficient designers and clients that choose to participate to make a real market.
Okay, just to stop it there, that is another source. Should you need any more information, should you need any more references, it's there. So you can either just go back to it at a later date, take a picture, write it down. That's up to you. Okay, so that was a very old school kind of video of for and against, or an argument of yes, it's ethical, no, it's not ethical, based on the same point. So you're looking from both perspectives. Right. So what we're going to do now is just a basic overview of what it is. So if you've made some notes, that's great. If not, I'm going to go through it in detail and kind of break down the points that he's mentioned, okay? Linking back to the most of the examples we've used throughout. Okay. So we've got, is it ethical, is it not? So his first point was unpaid work is always voluntary. So generally speaking, crowdsourcing is unpaid. Generally speaking, crowdsourcing is voluntary. Yeah, you don't have to do crowdsourcing, you don't have to go and share your ideas or anything like that. So people only usually contribute when they get something from it. So if you think about yourself, if you were to contribute to any brand that's running a crowdsourcing campaign, why would you? Would you go and share some ideas with a construction company if you have no desire, need, interest in construction? Probably not. Would you probably go and do something in tech or social media or whatever it is that you have an interest in, a passion for, maybe you want to go down that route in life, maybe in your career, whatever it is, you're more likely to contribute and get involved when it's something that you're actually going to get value from or see something like fruitful from it. If you don't have an interest, you probably won't go and share your ideas, okay? So this is really interesting. So they make their own informed choice on whether they want to contribute or not. So no one's forcing anyone to get involved. No one's forcing anyone to share their ideas, share their money, whatever it is that they're sharing, whatever it is that they're crowdsourcing for. No one's forcing anyone to do it. They have to make a choice and they choose whether they want to do it or not. They don't have to contribute. it's up to them whether they want to do it. So if they have a choice, how could that ever be unethical? If they're doing it because they want to, how could that ever be unethical? So that's the argument to say that it's not unethical. Okay? Moving on. So this type of work creates opportunities for people who wouldn't ordinarily get the chance to contribute or get involved. So when we think about artists, for example, so in the first week I gave you the example of Threadless, and we watched that YouTube video based on the t-shirt company. Don't know if you can remember, but if you can, I've used that pretty much over and over again to give you a better understanding. So they use designers to design their t-shirts, right? They are artists, they are designers. So what they're doing is getting opportunities to get their work recognized, published or printed or whatever it is, and get a chance to build their own brand, their own reputation, their own identity as an artist. So that's an opportunity for them that they probably wouldn't normally get if they were just going up the normal ranks of the hierarchy of actually, okay, I've got to go to university, I've got to get my art degree or design degree or whatever it is. I've got to then start applying for graduate jobs or jobs with these companies, and I've got to start off as an intern or work my way up and then start to get recognized. So generally speaking, that process is a lot more long-winded, has a lot more stages, is a lot more probably political than just going, getting your designs published because people like it, because people want it and they're voted for it. So essentially it creates opportunities, especially in this example where there's actually artists getting their work published and also getting the rights to them. It gives them opportunities that they wouldn't normally get until they put in a lot of time, work, effort, if that makes sense. Okay? And then obviously depending on the crowdsourcing campaign, depending on what it is that they want to achieve or get from the customers, will depend on what those opportunities are. So if, for example, you are I think I gave the Starbucks example, a hardcore Starbucks lover, you love Starbucks, you go there every single day, and it's like a habitual routine for you. If you get to then design your own cup that you can see in the store every time you visit, or you get to drink out of, that's probably going to be a great opportunity for you because that's a sense of pride. This is something you do all the time. It obviously has a lot of value, means a lot to you, and you get to have that opportunity that you wouldn't normally get. So it just creates that space in terms of that. So then people are saying, how can that be unethical then? If it creates opportunities and not diminishes opportunities, how can that be seen as unethical? And the last one. So this one says there's many benefits to crowdsourcing, so including being competitive and not being limited to the resource within their employment. So this sparks the age-old question of, is business ethical? Okay, so generally speaking, making a profit, when profit was the main goal, everything else was kind of seen as blurred lines. Doesn't matter if we're being unethical, doesn't matter if we're not contributing to the economy, if we're not paying our taxes, doesn't matter if we're, negatively impacting the environment or not supporting our local communities. It's all about the triple bottom line. It's all about making money. And that's like the age-old business kind of argument. Is it ethical? Technically speaking, no. If all you're worried about is making money, making profit, and you cut all the corners to do so, it's technically unethical. As we've progressed over time, as we've kind of evolved as a species and as a society, we care more, we're more involved. Before, what big companies were doing didn't really affect us, but now it's so in your face, it's so everyday. The social media has broken down the barriers and has allowed us to kind of feel like we're entitled now to have an opinion and to be involved. So now things have progressed, we care more, we're involved more, and technically speaking, when companies don't do things that are ethical, we're there, we're watching, we know, we hold them accountable. So if that is the case, and if you're being competitive, to make money, obviously you have to be competitive. How can that be seen as unethical, to make money? This is saying that it's ethical. Businesses need to survive, businesses need to make money, therefore we have to be competitive, we provide opportunities just by being and existing and being a business, therefore it's ethical. Also, we're employing people. Businesses employ people. That's ethical, is it not? We're creating jobs. Jobs create tax, being put back into the economy, all of this kind of stuff. So you could really take it any which way you want to, but this is just giving you a basic understanding of why people can argue whether it's ethical or not. Okay? So these are the points for ethical. There obviously are more. Obviously, depending on your business that you choose, depending on the campaigns that they run, there's probably things that are going to spark up ethics and not ethics. Yeah. So the whole point of the Starbucks White Cup contest was so that they can be more environmentally friendly, and they would have reusable cups. That's ethical within itself, right? They're caring about the environment, the impact that they have in terms of their carbon footprint, in terms of recycling. That's ethical. So obviously the points that you can make in relation to your business case study will depend on what actually is that they're doing, what they're trying to do. Okay, so now unethical. The main point he said was that people should be paid for their contribution, especially if the company makes money from it. So generally speaking, nobody should be working for free, right? Everyone would be a fair world if everyone got paid for everything that they did. But if this is a voluntary thing, how can you really say people should be paid for it? So I did mention, again, 2 weeks ago maybe, when we were talking about, last week, when we were talking about crowdfunding and what the people get in return from it. So if you can remember, we said, what if an individual gives an amazing idea and the business makes millions from it, and all they got was I gave my water bottle, a free water bottle example, yeah? Or they got a 25% discount code, and then that company's making millions. Is that fair? Is that exploitation to some extent? So these are the kind of things, when you're trying to look at it, obviously you have to weigh up, is the what's the word I'm looking for? The idea that you've given, is the concept of whatever solution or whatever idea or that thing that you've created, is it enough? So if you know all you're getting in return is a 25% gift voucher, but you know actually potentially it could save them so much money or make them so much money, is that fair? So there's that question. Somebody actually gave an example when I mentioned this, an example within the lecture, that a friend helped Asda save lots and lots and lots of money by switching fuel providers or something like that, and all they got was a £10 voucher. So that company, it was Asda he mentioned, he ended up saving them thousands of pounds, and he got a £10 voucher. So naturally, do you think he was happy or not? Obviously not happy. £10 voucher, thousands of pounds being saved, you want more, right? So this is another point that you can mention. Actually, if people are not rewarded properly, or if there's not a big enough incentive, it is looking at exploiting them and their ideas. So that's the way you can make that point. Okay, so it's exploiting people when very little is paid for their work. It can be seen as unfair. So these guys, they weren't given nothing. It wasn't just, just give me your idea and I'm going to take it. No, it's, hey, take a £10 gift card, or hey, have a water bottle. So they're still getting something, but just the value of it is so minute or so inconsequential compared to what they've actually provided, that it can be seen as unfair, and therefore unfair is unethical in this case. Okay? And then the last one, businesses should support their local communities by employing workers. So when we look at crowdsourcing in general, businesses tend to go to the crowd when there's a project or a campaign or some short-term thing that they need solutions for immediately, right? So technically speaking, do they need to hire those people if it's only a job that will take 2 months to fix? No, they don't, right? So they would go and naturally crowdsource because it's quick, short-term, and it's a temporary solution for what they need. And obviously there's so many more benefits for it. But then what happens to their workers? Different for different cases, okay? So most businesses will actually realize, okay, we still need our workers, we still need our employees, they still are very, very valuable, but we just can't right now, we don't have the capacity to do everything that we need to get everything done. So let's outsource, crowdsource, get everything sorted, and then everyone else can pick up the slack when we're back up to speed. Yeah? Sometimes crowdsourcing is literally just to get the customers involved, just to make a sense of community, just to find out the demands of their customer base. It's got nothing to do with their employees. But then it's a question of, are companies now starting to reduce their employment force? Are they trying to get rid of them because they don't want to give contracts, they don't want to give wages when they know that they can get the same work done for free or at very little cost? Also, sorry, I totally forgot to mention, in this first one here, when the company's making money from it. So obviously we've seen extreme examples of a £10 voucher or just a free product, but there's actually really good examples of Lego. And I think it was the Walkers Do Us a Flavor campaign. Does anyone know what the customer who gave the idea got, what they won? They were compensated nicely. Anyone know? No? Okay, they got 1% of all the revenue, all the sales, from the profit that was made. 1% is not a lot, but actually if you were just sitting there and said, oh, I want this, you know, just typed a few words, gave an idea won, and all of a sudden now you're just getting 1% of everything that gets sold. It's a nice little win-win, right? So you do get people who are compensated. It's not like all businesses take advantage, all businesses exploit people, you know, businesses do, especially if they're very heavily in the media, they will do what's right. Okay, so employee workers, this one's a bit of a funny one. So you have to look at your business, you have to look at your campaign. If it was just something that was run for 2-3 months, they're probably not looking to get rid of any employees. If it's something that's continuously run over years and years and years, you might want to see if there's any effect on their workforce. Are there any articles being written about it? And that will probably give you a better insight into what they're doing. And lastly, professionals should not do any unpaid work, even competitions. So personally, I don't agree with this point. He is very passionate about it, if you see from the video, and this is in his book. So I've kind of left it in there as a bit of a controversial, just to give you a bit of an insight on when you are looking at sources, when you are looking at references and understanding people's point of view, to really know how to get the best credible, you know, reliable sources. So I don't agree with this one because I feel like if you're a professional and you want to do unpaid work, it's up to you, it's your business, you know? If you want to volunteer, absolutely, by all means you should do so. Whether that has, he was basically getting at it having negative impacts on the industry itself. So however you want to spin it, it's totally up to you. But when you are looking for sources, when you are looking for references, just be careful. Is it heavily opinion-based? Is it being backed up by anything? Is it just this guy just saying whatever he wants to say? Has it been backed up? Has it got facts, figures to back up what he's saying? And does it link in with everything else that's going on? So just be very mindful of that. Okay, so that's the ethical and unethical arguments. Any questions on this? No? Okay. So as I mentioned, these are just a few starting points for you. What's going to be relevant is what's relevant to your business, the campaign they've run, and obviously the outcomes of that. Okay? So moving on now from the whole ethical argument, we've got crowdsourcing and content creators, so influencers. So now we are all very much aware of the new phenomenon of social media. You guys are living in it. I've kind of seen it emerge through my lifetime because it wasn't really there. Well, it was, but in really random, different little ways, and it's kind of evolved over time, okay? But you guys have grown up in it, you're in the midst of it. So what I've done is put an article up here for you to have a read, to get a better idea as well of content creators and influencers and how they work and link in with crowdsourcing. So I put that link here. It's all here for you. It gives you a good insight of the benefits and the things that they could have. So if your business definitely ran a campaign where they used other content creators or other influencers, then you can definitely use this and make a point out of it, okay? And talk about whether it links into the successes or the failures of the campaign. So again, another point for your assignment, another article, another reference. Okie dokie. So I think I've mentioned previously that crowdsourcing has been around for a very long time. I think I've mentioned that the way it was done back in the day, newspaper articles, posters, and mostly face-to-face, okay? But it wasn't given a name of crowdsourcing. It didn't have an identity. It was literally just, we're doing what we're doing. There's no name, there's no label. The example that was given was the shipping one and sailing, and then somebody gave the idea of how to navigate north or something while sailing, and that was done basically by someone just writing a letter in or something like that. But now obviously over time we've got the internet, we have websites, now we have social media, and the social media is going off into its totally own thing. Like we've got YouTube, which has a life of its own, and also the way influencers are now so apparent. So when we look at this, We need to understand that businesses can use social media to access the crowd, current and potential. And when I say social media here in this context, I'm talking about their own, okay? So this is how most companies use their own social media to access their customers. And that's usually what they do. But what this point is saying now is actually they can not only reference or access their own customers, they can go to these prominent influencers and start accessing all of their customers and all their followers. So it's allowing a whole new world to be opened up, basically. I'm sure you guys have seen it. You've got your paid partnerships, you've got people sponsoring certain businesses or certain brands and stuff like that. So into terms of crowdsourcing, how is it relevant? Influencers can be used to help engage, motivate, influence, and entice the crowd to getting involved. So it can be a way of advertising your crowdsourcing campaign if you work with them. If they pop up a little video for you, you can get that kind of engagement and get more people to get involved as opposed to just putting it on your own. Okay? Also, if you follow that person and all of a sudden they're saying, oh, get involved in this, you're more likely to do it than if the business itself is telling you to do it, especially if you've got no ties with that business. So there's benefits within that as well. So the points that I'm making now, the points that I'm saying, you guys need to be able to identify, is my business using it? Are they doing it? Can they do it? And two, well, that was two, can they do it? Three, how can they benefit from it? What's the benefits for them if they were to do this? Okay, so larger, more established companies tend to benefit from this. However, increasingly smaller and newer businesses are using this approach. So again, we've seen the big brands working with these big influencers, these big social media personalities, but now smaller businesses are doing it. They're trying to send out free products or free whatever to get them involved, to get people involved, to get more of a name out there. Because they have to compete, otherwise they're just not going to be able to. So how can this work in terms of crowdsourcing? So again, we've said that they can advertise or promote for them. But also, if you look at the content creator side of things, so this is just one example, okay, that I'm giving. Most of these content creators are self-made, self-taught. They didn't go and learn media in university. They didn't do a course on photography. They literally just taught themselves. So what kind of skill set are you getting as opposed to your normal average, somebody who graduated, did an internship, did a graduate scheme, whatever it is? There are probably two different types of skill sets there. So they're getting to, and obviously it's popular, there's demand for it. People are loving what they're seeing. That's why they have hundreds and thousands and millions of followers in some cases. So if they can create their own intros for their own YouTube videos or their own social media, and they can create their own kind of, I don't know what these words are, but you know, the backdrop, and they can make their social media look a certain type of way. And if they can do that creatively, independently, why would a company not go ahead and use them and crowdsource them to get their campaigns done, their adverts made, their social media looking good, right? Clearly they're tried and tested, they're successful. So instead of hiring someone for the whole year or however long contract you want to give them to create that, why not go to somebody who you can see their work already and probably wouldn't have to pay them as much, but they probably have much more of an impact than hiring an individual. So that's a way you can see if these content creators and influencers can benefit them, okay? So what are the benefits of content creators within crowdsourcing? I've kind of just given you a few points there. Again, depending on your business, depending on your case study, you can kind of see what the benefits are to your company. Okay? So that was a lot of talking, there's a lot of information. Are there any questions on this itself? This is a fairly new phenomenon, okay? So especially with the content creators and the influence and crowdsourcing linking into that. So when you are making your points, there's no real right or wrong answer. It's more how you justify it, how you back it up, and how you make the points that you're making. Okay? Right, any questions? No. Right, next week then, very important. So as I mentioned, this is the last lecture in terms of content for crowdsourcing. Next week's lecture is a breakdown of the assignment requirements. So whether you're doing the culture and creativity or the crowdsourcing, I'm going to go through. I'm going to try and give you a play-by-play on how to approach the assignment, how to approach the essays, okay? The lecture itself is going to be a workshop, Q&A, draft planning session. So try to come in as prepared as possible. Have some questions ready. Have have a like intro and have a company and have some examples or whatever it is that you want to talk to with your seminar tutor. Okay? And we can make the most out of that. And then actually you guys should know that that is your last lecture, last seminar next week before you break up for Easter, and then your actual assignment is due. Yeah? So make the most of it, I would say, rather than emailing every single seminar tutor you have, come in, ask all the questions you need there and then, get a response there and then you can kind of just crack on with it over the Easter break. Yeah? But just quickly then, some people have asked for essay examples. So you know how with assignment 1, we gave you an example of sketches of the assignment. In this case, there are no essay examples because they changed from last year. So we're not going to be able to give you them. That's why I'm giving you guidance next week. And also, I'll go into this more detail next week, but recommendations. It's an essay. Recommendations usually come in a report. The only ones that require some level of recommendations is question 2, crowdsourcing. If you can see in the question, it says advise on future crowdsourcing campaigns or what they can do. That's where a little bit of recommendations come in. But again, I'll go through that in more detail next week. All right.